Hello, everyone. It's Allison from the Worldbuilder's Tavern podcast. I was chatting with some writers on our Discord server about how much I loved Scrivener, and several people said that they'd heard it was really good, but were intimidated to learn it, which I understand because Scrivener can do a lot, and that can be overwhelming. So I decided to make a tutorial for you all. I'll show you how to get started, Scrivener's basic functions, how I personally set up my Scrivener documents, and my 5 favorite tools. So let's get started. Let's open up Scrivener. This screen has some tutorials you can go through on your own, and various templates for different kinds of writing projects. We're going to click the blank template and start from scratch. You'll be prompted to enter a title for your project. We're going to call it Dragons of Doom. I'm so good at titling things. Now we are in a basic vanilla Scrivener document. Note, this is the Windows version. Mac is pretty similar. I actually have both versions, but the Mac menu sometimes looks a little bit different, so just keep that in mind. This section on the left is called the binder. It is the menu to every file you put into this project. You will put the actual text of your novel into this folder called draft. When you're finished a novel and want to compile it into a Word or PDF document, only the files in your draft folder will be compiled. So if you hit the green plus symbol, you can add either a folder or a text document. I like to write my first draft with just text documents, so I'll make a text document for each chapter. So I'll make a text file for chapter 1, chapter 2, and chapter 3 went out of order, but you can just drag it down like this. So when you're in chapter 1, you click your cursor over here and you start writing. Bob the Dragon was having a bad, sad day. Boo. You'll notice the icon beside chapter 1 changes to have text on it because you have put words into this document, and Scrivener knows. You can also organize your chapters as folders instead and put text documents inside them. This is helpful if you want to organize your novel by scenes. I tend to use this feature in the second draft because I just want to get all the words out and not pause to make a new document when I have a scene break. You can also use folders to separate your chapters and scenes into acts or parts. If you want to eliminate distractions while you're writing, you can turn on composition mode by pressing this button on the upper right. It opens up a window with just your text file. You can fade out the background as much as you want, or even add a custom image into the background to create a specific aesthetic. You can also change the font and background colors if you prefer dark text on a light background, or vice versa. I'll show you how to do that later when we talk about customization. Another useful mode while you're writing is split screen. This might be my favorite Scrivener feature because it lets you look at 2 documents at once. Hit this button on the right and suddenly you have 2 windows. I love this because I can look at another chapter or a research document while I'm writing. If you're coming from working in Word or Google Docs, you will love this too. Even with bookmarks, it's difficult to navigate through an 80,000 word document in Word. Scrivener's binder plus the split screen mode makes it so easy to find what you're looking for. You'll notice these buttons up here toggle different views. We are currently in document view, but if you select your draft and then Corkboard View, you'll see your chapter displayed as these cards. You can rename chapters straight from here. You can also add chapter summaries. It will automatically pull sample text from the chapter as the description unless you add one in yourself. So we'll add a summary to chapter 2. Bob has lunch and sets the table on fire. I'm just going to reorganize the binder to get rid of the folder so we can see all the scenes here. Oh yeah, if you don't want a file, you can just drag it into the trash like this. Boop. Corkboard mode is useful because you could get a bird's eye view of your chapters and or your scenes. You can move them around easily. Doing so will also move it in the binder. This is really useful for when you outline or work on your novel's structure. You might do this at the beginning or at the end of your draft, depending on if you're a plotter or a discovery writer, also referred to as a pantser because you write by the seat of your pants. I'm a bit of both. I do a bit of outlining at the beginning and I restructure in the second draft, so I use this mode all throughout my process. I like it because you can move scenes around and see if they fit better elsewhere, and if you don't like it, you can move it back. Scrivener has features that aren't just about the actual writing of the novel, and one of these is the ability to add more folders below your draft folder. The research folder is there already. You can hit the green button to add text or folders beneath it. For example, I'm currently outlining a fantasy book about potion making, so I'm going to want a document under here called Herbs, and then I will add text in here listing herbs and their uses. The cool thing about the research folder is that you can also add images. So let's say I want this image of a forest for inspiration, so I'll drop it right in there. Say OK. And now we have this dark, gloomy forest picture right in Scrivener. You can toggle split screen mode, so you could be working on chapter 1 and looking at this image for inspiration. Every writer is different and will want different items, but I thought I'd show you how I personally organize my binder. I like to add a folder called Notes. Oh, I accidentally created it as a subfolder under Research, but I want it to be its own thing, so I'll just click and drag it up. If you want the symbol for the folder to look different, you can right-click and choose Change Icon. I'm going to make it a pencil. Underneath my Notes folder, I add a text file called Random Notes. I'm going to make the icon a notepad. This is where I spit out all my ideas, particularly at the beginning when I'm outlining, but also during the drafting phase. I just want somewhere to put all my unorganized ideas and thoughts for my story. Then I also add a glossary because I write fantasy, and as you speculative fiction writers and world builders know, you come up with names and words and terms for things, and then you forget about them, so it's nice to have them in one spot. The next folder I add is called Outline. You might find this useful to add even if you don't outline your novel beforehand, because reverse outlining during the editing phase can be really helpful. I do reverse outlines whenever I'm editing my own or a client's novel. It really helps with structure and pacing. Underneath the outline folder, I add a document called Chapter Summaries. Inside that document, I put a table, simply because I used to do this in Excel or Google Sheets before I used Scrivener, and so my brain wants to see this information in a table. There's a table button up here where you can click and make it, but I'm just going to copy-paste from a different project to show you what mine looks like. It has action beats in it, which are from Save the Cat Writes a Novel by Jessica Brody, which I highly recommend. Then I have my word count goal noted down here, but there's actually another place to put that in Scrivener, which I will show you later. Then, because I use Save the Cat so much, I also have a text doc specifically for that, just to remind myself what the beats are. I like putting them here so I don't have to look them up elsewhere. So everything's in one spot. That is the beauty of Scrivener. So I noticed that there wasn't a cat symbol in these icon options, and I wanted it to be a cat. So you can also go to icon from text and it will give you all these emoji options. So I just search for cat and throw in this smiley cat. Yay, kitty. Next, I add a subplots document. This is because I tend to lose track of my subplots while I'm writing, and I like to have a place where they are all listed. That way I can go back when I'm editing and say, oh, I forgot about that romance or that mystery, and then I can go back in and add more threads throughout the story. I also add a text document for a blurb and another for a synopsis. A blurb is like what you would read on the back cover of a published book. I find it's useful to write a blurb even before you're done your novel because it helps you understand what your novel is really about by condensing it into a couple paragraphs. It's really hard to do. I hate it, but it's also really helpful. Some people use blurb and synopsis interchangeably, but in the publishing querying world, a synopsis is a 1 to 2 page document that summarizes everything that happens in your story, including spoilers. Agents sometimes ask for it, and editors at publishers often ask for it when you're in the getting a publisher/editor phase. Next, I add a document for title ideas. Sometimes ideas come to me while I'm writing, or I want to jot down associative words or whatnot. And then that's it for my outline folder. Then I add a folder for characters. This is where I would insert text documents about specific characters. So I'll put the character name, Bob, and then I might put his goals, his flaws, his personality, his appearance, etc. And then I'll have one of these documents for each of my characters under the characters folder. Then under the research folder, I always put in a document for names, where I put a giant list of names that fit the world of my story, so I don't have to come up with them on the spot while I'm writing and can just pull from there. Under research, I also add a folder called Enneagram. This is really specific to me because I like to use the Enneagram, which is a personality system similar to Myers-Briggs or 16 personalities. I like it for character inspiration because it really digs into why characters might do things, not just what they do, and gives me ideas for flaws and goals and character arcs. So I will add a text document for each of the 9 Enneagram numbers, and then I drop in the information here. I compiled this info that you're seeing on the screen myself. If you're interested in using the Enneagram for character creation, there's a series on my blog at aealexander.com with all this info in it. And then that is everything that I put into my starting Scrivener projects. I also like to make it look a little prettier. This is the default version, but you can customize Scrivener to look however you want. Scrivener comes with several built-in themes, which you can access by going to Window and selecting Themes. I'll show you what they all look like. There's Dark Mode, Gray Matter Dark, Gray Matter Light, Mellow Yellow, Ocean, Solarized Dark, Solarized Light, and Violet Haze. I like the darker look, so I'm going to go with that one. However, I don't really like white text on dark background, so if you want to customize the appearance of Scrivener, go to File, Options, and Appearance. From here, you can basically change anything. For example, if we want to change our binder font, I'll make mine Times New Roman, maybe make it a little bigger. You can tell it to bold the fonts of the folders, and all the subfolders will remain unbolded. You can change your binder background color, maybe we want it to be bluer. Oh, for some reason, that doesn't let you preview it when you hit apply. You have to hit OK first. That is, I think, just a bug that they will hopefully fix at some point. Right, so I wanted to change the font and background of the main editor, so that would be under Colors Editor. Click the color swatch. I also don't like the background bright white because that's hard on your eyes, so I'm going to make it a boring gray, and then we want the text to be black. So you can play around with this as there's a bunch of options, get the colors looking however you want. It's a real-time sync, let me tell you. Oh, I had previously mentioned I would show you this under Corkboard and colors. You can drop a background image in. So I'll just throw in this spacey background. Then you look at your Corkboard mode. It's got this cool background on it now. And you can do the same thing for the composition mode under options. Composition mode, colors. Oh my goodness, there's so many options. We'll put this image in and then go to composition mode so you can see now there's a custom background in there. So that's how you make your Scrivener pretty. Finally, let's go over 5 cool tools. That's right, I'm a millennial, so I still use the word cool. Like the themes, these are extra bells and whistles you don't need to know, but you might find them useful. The first one is session targets and word count goals, which you can access by selecting project and project targets. Here you can give yourself a target word count for your entire manuscript. Let's say you want your manuscript to be 90,000 words by the time you're done. And you can also give yourself a session target. So say you want to write 500 words today. And then there are some other options here, like resetting the session count every day, counting text written anywhere in the project, etc. So if you know how long you want your novel to be, or you're doing NaNoWriMo, this is handy. The second tool on my list I only just discovered, so I haven't played around with this one much, but you can go to Edit, Writing Tools, Name Generator. There's a bunch of settings here like attempt alliteration and obscurity level and various ethnicities. So we'll select a bunch of options, tell it to generate us about 10 names, and voila. The third tool is Snapshots, and if you only take one tool from this list to use, choose this one. Open your inspector panel by hitting the blue circle on the upper right here. I didn't really cover the inspector much, but you can add synopses and notes here as well. Then hit the camera icon and then the plus button, and it will take a snapshot of the document you have open. So in this situation, it is snapshotting Bob the Dragon was having a bad day, and it'll save it and keep a copy of that draft down here. This is particularly useful when you're editing because you can take a snapshot before you rewrite or delete a scene, and then you don't have to worry about losing it completely if you want to return to it, and you don't have to keep multiple drafts of chapters in multiple files on your computer, and you can take as many snapshots as you want of individual text files. I love this feature. It's one of my favorites. Our fourth tool for the organization lovers is labels. You can add a label to a text document by right-clicking and selecting Label. The default labels are just named after colors, but you can edit this and call them whatever you want. Many writers use this feature to label chapter points of view if they're writing a multiple point of view story. So you might say, this is Bob's chapter, and this orange is for Lulu, and then we'll label this chapter Bob and chapter 2 as Lulu. You can then go to View, use label color in binder, and it will show the label color as a dot in your binder. The fifth and final tool on my list is keywords. This is sort of similar to labels, except you can only have one label per document, whereas you can attach multiple keywords. To add a keyword, go to the inspector and click this custom metadata button, and you can add keywords here. I like to use keywords to keep track of plots and subplots. For example, if we wanted to keep track of Bob and Lulu's romance, and you can edit the color, we'll make it red for love. You can add these keywords to any chapter, so the Bob Lulu romance here is attached to chapter 3, but not to chapter 1 or 2. One way to look at these is by going to the view I haven't talked about, which is not the corkboard, but the outliner. This mode gives you a bunch of information. You can see the chapters labeled from Lulu's point of view here, and it's not showing keywords, but you can change that by going to this little difficult to notice arrow in the corner of the screen and check off keywords, and now it'll show you the red color. And that is it for this Scrivener tutorial. If you enjoy writing, in particular sci-fi and fantasy, check out the Worldbuilder's Tavern podcast. Say hi to us on TikTok, Twitter, Discord, or Patreon at patreon.com/worldbuilderstavern. We'd love to hear from you. I hope this was helpful, and thank you for watching.